And boom, according to that, I am live. I've got the comments from some people last week that the audio wasn't loud enough. As far as like on Streamlabs, it's redlining right now. This is as high as I can push it. Part of the reason is that I'm in a quiet apartment at night, so I'm trying to be considerate, but I'm trying to talk close to the mic. So I'll see if I can do better on the sound this week. I hope everyone's good. How are you all? Like seriously, not many topics tonight. I've had a very, very busy week at work, and of course, there's been some big topics. The main one being, of course, that Japan is going Suga-Free. So some stuff to talk about with that, including the prospective candidates. I guess that's going to be the main part of it. There's some other news as well, some bits and pieces to talk about. But as always, I love it when people do what Andrea did and just says my name. Pops up there in orange, and you can give me any topic that you like. You can ask me any topic that you'd like me to talk about, and I will happily do that. Just going to bring that around over here. Ask me questions, give me topics. Tonight's a good night for that. Otherwise, as always, 10:30 p.m. every week. Aiming for 11:30 to finish, but somehow, no matter whatever happens, it always goes about 10 minutes over. But it's great to see so many people already rocking, and especially given that I set this up at the last minute. So, great to see you all. Let's pop through and see who we've got here. We've got Andrea Moboy. Great to see you. I see we've got not that much. 7 people waiting already. Yeah, indeed. Shocks me as well. Olivia D, great to see you. Hello, right back at you and everybody. We've got Aaron, yo, moderator Aaron, excellent to have you back with us. Who else is in here? We've got Quint Ranked, great to see you. Yeah, the butter emoji is being held for review. I don't know what's up with that. There we go, just enabled. Who else have we got in here? Scraping wallpaper. That doesn't sound fun at all. But I'm sure all in a good cause. Boom, indeed. A Devoid, good morning. Good to see you, Devoid. We've got Cobras Tenshi, One Johnson. Wow, lots of people rocking in. And indeed, thanks for the shout out. We've got Quint Rankett. If I'm not already covering it, the party, not government talks between Japan and Taiwan. I'm not covering it, actually. I don't know a lot of the details about it. It's honestly something that happens time to time anyway. It's just getting more attention right now because of all the stuff going on with Taiwan. Yeah, I can talk about that. Remind me a little bit. In fact, maybe I'll start off with that one even. Not that, given that I don't have a lot to say about it, but thanks for the suggestion, Quint. Thomas H., great to see you. So you've mentioned you'd be covering One Cut of the Dead. Yes, indeed. So here's the thing, though. If you've seen it and you love it, I also saw it and love it. I watched it totally blind. I had no idea what it was about. And as well as recommending the movie, which is something I'm definitely going to do, I'm going to try to talk about it without saying anything about what's in it, because I think that's the only way to enjoy it. I think the only thing I can do is I can just give the tip. Well, I'll do this in a moment, but I can give the tip for people watching to hold on. That first 30 minutes is actually really tough to get through, and I almost gave up, and I'm really glad, obviously, that I didn't. I'm looking forward to talking. I'm going to try to talk about that cryptically, but in a way that makes it clear to people that they should go watch it. So, yes, indeed, Thomas H., I love that. I enjoyed that movie a lot. 270 AJ, good to see you. Hey, you were watching Weezy Walter's Sleep Experiments playlist on YouTube yesterday. They are funny and good. I've never heard of them. So, like the recommendation. Always had sleep problems since childhood. Do I get good sleep? I have a talent. I can sleep anywhere, anytime, like that. I've never really had problems sleeping. Maybe the odd one-off kind of thing, but generally, no. Sleeping is something. If it were a talent, I would probably be better off than I am. I can sleep. Although I must admit, I got some tips on that. My mum, I think, had trouble with that, and she learned how to do like self-hypnosis, and she gave me the tips that she learned for that about breathing and visualizing. And I must admit, I used that myself a few times, and I find that quite sort of effective. The idea that actually very simple and straightforward. Though I don't do this all the time, but I sometimes, when I really need to get to sleep quickly, I do use the technique that she taught me, which is you lie down and you sort of gradually, you focus on relaxing the muscles in each part of your body, from your toes up to the top of your head, like bit by bit. Like you spend like a few minutes doing it, And then you sort of focus when you're completely relaxed on visualizing yourself floating. I like to imagine I'm floating in space, and then I actually like to visualize that I'm like re-entering the atmosphere, but kind of floating. I'm a space geek, so that's what I do. And yeah, seriously, like you do that, and totally knocks me out every time. The other thing is, of course, doing exercise and whatnot. But I'm curious to check it out. Thank you for the recommendation, 278J. It's always good to hear what people are watching, and I've been enjoying watching YouTube channels myself. I actually shared today that I was catching up, binge watching a bunch of Anton Petrov videos. From what I can make out, I think he's a Russian-born Canadian maths teacher, like at a regular high school, from what I can tell. And just for a hobby, he like reads science papers and looks up newest space and science discoveries, and he just reads these papers and just explains them really, really well. And it's just, I love the guy. He just explains really, really well. Always super interesting and stuff like that. There's channels I watch that have nothing to do with what I present here. That I really enjoy as well. But it's always funny getting into new sort of topics. So yeah. Andrew, my boy, lucky me. You're a light sleeper. Better now since starting Pilates and working out more. Yeah, definitely. And no question, when I'm exercising and so on, it always works better. So yeah, but there again, I definitely think I'm predisposed to not having a problem there. Mr. Cordy Chap, hey, you've heard of Anton Petrov, have you? He's excellent channel. What the Math, I think, used to be the original channel name, but it's a really great. I was actually looking today, thinking it'd be nice to support the channel, and thinking of getting a Wonderful Person T-shirt. Apart from the fact I love the idea of just that he always introduces hello wonderful people, and that he's got like and that you'd have a shirt that says hi wonderful people, and the fact that it's got like a space theme. It's right up my alley. I think I'm going to buy one of the shirts actually. So bad bosses. I'm sorry to hear about people struggling with bad bosses. Michael Morris. Good to see Michael Morris. Actually, don't recognize the handle name. You know what? Come think about it. I think I have seen your handle name before. But in any case, great to see you. And thank you for dropping in a comment. Bob Ross. Joy of painting is great to help you sleep. Oh, I can imagine. There are some. Actually, I must admit as well, if it's really late, like listening to science YouTube videos is a good way to go to sleep as well. Though then you fall asleep with like the AirPods in, and that's uncomfortable. So that's not so great. But indeed. Wow. Kubris Tenshi. I don't know what you're doing there. I do know. I don't know if this is actual binary code, but I do know 1-1 was a racehorse. 2-2 was 1-2. 1-1-1-1 race. 2-2-1-1-2. I don't think that's what you're saying, but anyway. Inadvertent ASMR. I believe you. David Guzman. Good to have David Guzman here in the chat. And hello, right back at you. Thanks for the name. And remember, do what they're doing. Just say my name, and it comes up, flashing orange like that. Chris B. Wow, did you make a live stream, Chris B? Yes, you did. Congratulations, you made it here. You are in the select few. I'm not very ambitious in terms of channel goals, so very good to have you with us, and welcome. And just as I was saying, hey, if you want to ask me to talk about anything, I'll dance like a monkey. Just say Hiko Simon, and questions, comments, anything. Good to have you in the chat. Good to see everybody. We're 10 minutes in. Let's just start on the topics. I'm going to try not to talk about Suga in the beginning. I'm going to try to talk about the other topics because, I get the feeling that's one I could definitely rant about or just ramble about for a long time. And I'm going to do that with the other topics anyway. So, yes, indeed. Let's jump in. 270 AJ. I know it sucks not being able to sleep. And I don't have a good tip for it other than, I personally, the visualizing thing works for me, and I think I'm kind of good at that anyway. There again, I like I say, I'm predisposed to being good at sleeping, so that is what that is. Let's dive in. First of all, for those who are interested, what's going on in Tokyo at the moment with the COVID situation, it's looking good. I was actually just looking at like the wave. It is amazing how these how these pandemics in Japan and elsewhere like form these wave shapes. And it's weird if you think about it. People are catching COVID from other people, and it goes up and down. It's so weird that it can happen en masse, like across huge geographic areas and people in these wave shapes. And these waves are really symmetrical. Based on the wave, it's still terrible. It still is above the worst level that it's ever been before this wave. And not only that, but also the number of serious patients and deaths is higher than it ever was. Although what is encouraging is that this time it is, Delta is horrible. It's causing a lot more serious cases than we've had before, but predominantly among people in the ages that are not yet eligible for vaccination. For the age groups that are vaccinated largely already, the over 60s, very low rates, which until now it's always been elderly filling up the emergency rooms and so on. So it really shows this would be a lot worse if we hadn't had the vaccination so far, and why I'm very glad I got vaccinated, even with the Moderna one. I haven't even checked if I actually got mine from one of the bad batches. And around that as well, I remember even mentioning the news that there are people who, there are concerns that it might have represented the contamination of some of those batches from the Spanish factory that was making the Moderna shots. Appears to have contained stainless steel in some of the shots, which, is pretty dangerous to be having contaminants in injection things. And it's not anything at all against the, vaccines themselves. It's an issue with the actual, standards at the factory producing it, which, should be called out and corrected. But I'm very glad I got my Moderna shots. And, I've been... Personally, it just means that while it probably won't suppress the number of people getting it, clearly you can still get it and get to be positive. You can even get a seriously bad case of it. The chances of getting a serious case of COVID are like 1 in 10 or something like that less, right? It's a lot. So basically, it seems to be increasingly clear looking at countries like Israel and the UK that have pretty high vaccination rates. They're already pretty much done. They're not going to protect us from getting it. They're just going to mean that mostly it's going to go from being something that has a pretty, still people debate how serious the death rates are, but, are pretty scary, much scarier than the flu or sort of other regular things, to hopefully being something more like the flu that you get, a periodic shot for, and that, eventually everyone will get it, but everyone will sort of get through it, being pretty miserable, but we'll get through it, as opposed to taking, a risk with your own life and the lives of others. So, I am optimistic. Looking at the shape of the current wave, we should probably be going back down to where it was like before the state of emergency in about 4 weeks. So I've still got about a month of it being completely miserable. Still terrible with serious cases. But the big thing at the moment in Japan is last week and this week, the Obon going home vacations and summer vacations for schools have ended. This is happening in a lot of places in the northern hemisphere. With summer vacations ending and kids going back to schools and seeing how contagious this wave has been, and it started during the school holidays, what I am worried about, in fact, I honestly don't see how there can be any avoidance of schools becoming massive centers. Like, more so, it was always a concern, but with Delta, it's now more of a concern given how more virulent the virus is, of it spreading in schools, and somehow it's going to go up again. I'm hopeful that won't happen. It didn't happen before, and I know that the schools are being very careful, but that's what I'm looking at now with my son going back to school tomorrow. Again, we're better off now, but that's the main thing. So wait and see, but things are getting better. Also, the Olympics finished tonight. The Paralympics finished tonight, so that's done. And yeah, again, I must admit, again, congratulations to all the athletes, congratulations to all the volunteers. It was a big undertaking. I know a big commitment for a lot of people who are involved, committed years to setting this up, but at the same time, shouldn't have done it. And, from the leadership point of view, that's one reason that Suga left that we'll talk about in a moment. They shouldn't have done it, and it's held up things like Japan residents being stuck and unable to return, keeping families apart for years, people waiting to come here for jobs, for student visas. Immigration's been shut down to accommodate this for, basically 2 months, and it's going to be a few more weeks. But the hope is now that this is over, we can start to see, vaccine passport-based travel and all these sort of normal things. So I am an optimist. If we're really talking like if this wave is like the other waves and we're 4 weeks to go, really until things get sort of better, which relies on everybody continuing to take this totally seriously for another 4 weeks, and the schools not becoming clusters, it means that, I can see how towards the end of the year, I do have some more stuff on this In fact, I think I put it here. Yeah, Japan to issue online vaccine certificates in December. So it sounds like they're moving towards having online vaccine passports towards the end of the year. In fact, last week the scientific committee that advises the Japanese government started to suggest, a bit like France and Italy, Japan should consider having, although they're not making vaccines mandatory anywhere in Japan, they are suggesting having things like restricting access to movie theaters. Requiring vaccine passports to be able to access certain things, to be able to loosening restrictions on condition of proof of vaccine passports. And I think that's what this is going to be part of, having these sort of mobile application and mobile phone, hopefully digital, not just carrying a big A4 piece of paper like they have right now. But these are all ways that you can start to look at things like making, reopening Japan and starting to go back to offices and starting to go and watch movies and go out drinking and so on, which you haven't been able to do for 18 months, at least not really completely. So, nothing's going to happen fast, never does in this country, but I can sort of see how if they're doing that in December, and with the way that trends are, and, things can change quickly all of a sudden. But, I'm optimistic right now that we could actually... in 3 or 4 months' time, we could be getting back to some kind of, normal would be the wrong word for it. I really can't imagine a world in Japan. I've gotten so used to wearing a cloth mask whenever I go out. Japan's always very hygiene conscious anyway, generally. So I just think that's going to be like part of the standard going out from now on. So normal is going to be different, but I can see some sort of resumption of at least not being stuck in this room all the time and being able to talk to and meet other people, which I'm looking forward to. It's been a long time. So, some good signs in Japan. That's the first story. Back into the comments here. Curious what other people think about this. Let's help me try to go back. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. Says Mr. Cordy Chep. Don't know what that's about. So, yes. Quickly going through. Union is useless too. I'm sorry to hear that. I'll dance like a monkey. Hell yes, I will. Better believe it. Cobra Stanchi. I like dancing monkey emojis. Your emoji game is strong. Great to see the guys English World made it. And I haven't talked about One Cut above. I keep saying above One Cut of the Dead. I'm going to talk about that soon. I know that you watched it the other day as well. Ninja Monkey. Great to send you, Ninja Monkey. By the way, sorry I haven't gotten back to you on your DM on Twitter. The answer is absolutely yeah. Like I've been saying every week the last few weeks, if you're stuck outside of Japan and want to travel to Japan, I actually, not just on this YouTube channel, I've been telling people at work, I know people at my work who have been waiting for more than a year to bring their families into Japan, like on work visas. I'm sure there are people watching in similar situations, and I actually told them the best source of focused information, a channel that just dedicates itself to gathering the best information on when Japan's going to reopen, and I think things are moving right now, so it's interesting to follow. Ninja Monkey puts it together the best, really twice a week, I think, at the moment. And I just appreciate you're filling a niche that a lot of people around me and people who watch this channel are interested in. So you make recommendable content. I respect that. I respect the effort you put into your videos. Very, very, very happy that you do what you do. And if you want to collab anytime, dude. But like I say, you should check out his videos. His videos are much more watchable than mine. They're only like 6 minutes long, and they're great compact updates. So they basically did what I just rambled for 10 minutes, except they're actually more informative, and they only take 6. So yeah, Ninja Monkey, good to see you. Andrea Moboy had your first Pfizer jab on Friday. Congratulations. I know it's been slow there in Australia, but that's the start of the way out. And Pfizer, the old 95%, I only got the 94% effective Moderna, so you got the slightly better score. Also, people do get a higher rate of apparently fevers and side effects from the Moderna. All goes away unless they're injecting stainless steel in you. Pfizer, by all accounts, is actually generally the smoother experience. If you got that on Friday, Andrew Moboy, how are you doing with fevers and stuff like that? With Moderna, it's like 80% of people who get Moderna get a mild fever. Some people get a bad fever the next day, but with Pfizer, some people don't get anything. So hope you're feeling okay, but it certainly is worth it anyway. Odie Jr., late boomer. Me too. David Guzman, do I see the LDP losing the lower house election this year because of the mishandling of the pandemic in Japan and holding the Olympics? David Guzman, we'll get to that in a minute, but my short answer to that is no. It's baffling. I mean, it's like, it's not that they're going to win it because people love them. The Japanese government has a 70% disapproval rate. And so you would ask, how would any government with a 70% disapproval rate probably win the next election? And the answer is that the largest opposition party has, like 6% support. And you want to know why that's the case? Well, one, people still remember how terrible they were when they were in government, and how they betrayed everything they promised about what they were going to do for voters. But on top of that, when they make the news lately, it's like one of their politicians lately went in the news saying that it was absurd that, elderly men could be, criminally charged merely for having sex with 12-year-olds who totally consent. And we should change the laws. The opposition, when they wanted to pick up a topic, granted it wasn't the whole opposition, and this person was forced to resign eventually, but when they speak up on an issue, all the things that they could talk about, the mishandling of the pandemic and the Olympics, they advocated for in favor of statutory rape. So that's the opposition. This is why in every NHK poll, 45%, the largest support for any party goes to none of the above. It's baffling. It's horrible. And that's why this whole leadership race in the LDP, it's funny. I mean, most people don't get to vote in it. Only registered LDP members and parliamentarians. And yet it's going to be more important than the actual election in November. Unless something dramatic happens. But I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But that's my general take. Thanks for the question. Continuing to go through Crispy, congrats on being fully vaccinated. Your team. You should do that stuff. Where is it? Check it out. I got a little bottle that I've fully vaccinated, just a little souvenir. I thought that was kind of cool. It doesn't really show up very clearly there, but can you see that there? Vaccinated. Yeah, I thought I'd just get a trophy. Boom. So it's a good way to be. EDIR, good to see you. Haven't seen a spike here, but yet then again, 85% of the population has been vaccinated. EDIR, remind me where you are. But glad wherever it is that we haven't seen a spike. I'm in Japan. It's funny in comparison to, someone put up a graph the other day showing a comparison of, cases per population, UK, America, a lot of countries. And Japan has basically had nothing really in comparison to other countries. But, it's funny. They still do spike. So I don't know how you've avoided that, but congrats. Andrea Mulboy, a Victorian government here already and talks about doing passports, etc. It is crazy to me how Australia has suddenly, become like a bunch of different countries, like even more than before. It was always funny how the news wouldn't cover that, but like the parochialism in Australia, how that sort of merged with like the germ paranoia and weird kind of state parochial nationalism, and how it's led to hard borders and stuff is just like mind-blowing to me in Australia. But so much in Australia to me is just incomprehensible right now. Left arm so far. That's pretty standard. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next topic. EDR from Denmark. Okay, well, it's pretty cool that you've gotten through with no real spikes. That's actually pretty awesome. And 85% vaccinated. So Europe did a really good job on that. I guess they secured the supply of vaccines early. So that is something we had to wait until after sort of Europe and America got through theirs first. But I'm glad that we did. I think we're doing at a good pace right now. By the way, vaccinations in Japan right now are pretty consistently between like 1.1 and 1.3 million shots a day. And, the idea is that pretty much, the entire population that wants shots will be able to have them complete by November. So, it was late starting. But I think that for all the people throwing tomatoes at the moment at the government, we'll talk about this in a moment, I think they've actually done a respectable job. And I can wait 2 more months till November. I mean, geez, it's probably good not to be patient. That'll force things to go along and not give people excuses. But personally, I'm not so upset as some other people. Mitch B, dude, you've been here so long enough to explain to people not in Japan that they frown on giving PCR tests. I'm not sure if you're talking to me, Mitch B. I know that you didn't say my name on there, I just noticed, but I've been here long enough to explain to people not in Japan that they frown on giving PCR tests. That's not true. They don't frown on it. You can get a PCR test right now from any any pharmacy, and they're super cheap. When there's a case at my son's school, we just went and bought them. There is a thing where the doctors' clinics and so on, that they stopped all the trace. The Health Bureau stopped the what do they call it, the contact tracing, because frankly the numbers got too much for them to handle, and they were doing it all manually, and they just don't have the capacity to keep up with the cases right now. Around that, I think that the same thing, the health, what do they call them, the health boards or whatever that investigate themselves, were not issuing tests themselves, but there's nothing stopping people from voluntarily getting them. They're trying to maintain a certain level of capacity, and this is connected with them not taking people into hospitals either. But yeah, anyway, Shivas, good to see you, and Iraq299, good to have you here in the chat. Boom, let's get on to the next topic. Wow. I'm glad the comments are active tonight, because I really don't have a lot of topics, and just for an idea of how few topics I have, the next topic is about socks. These Family Mart just put out these, Family Mart, like convenience stores in Japan, are amazing. Obviously, I mean, if you want to start, anyone who watches this, who knows anything about Japan, knows that, knows all the basics that, Japan, the things that Japan has that other places don't have, that ruin you. The idea that Japan is a technopolis of future technology, people often come here and they're like kind of disappointed, and they're like, hey, I thought that everything here was supposed to be high tech. But what they do go away and they do miss when they leave, one is, of course, the toilets, and I cannot live anywhere without Japanese toilets now. Seriously, it actually has ruined me for living anywhere else. The rest of the world desperately needs to catch up on the toilets. And the other thing is convenience stores. Of course, convenience stores play the role of the gas station, or the dairy in New Zealand or Australia, but in Japan they're just so next level. The things that you can do and the things that you can get at a convenience store, you can get, you can get anything. And there is one thing in Japan that, they'll always sell. They'll sell like funeral ties. They sell underwear, which, makes sense in certain circumstances. They sell socks. They sell like hair care and makeup stuff. Pretty much. I mean, you can post something. You can post a suitcase overseas if you need to. You can pick up your Amazon or Rakuten deliveries. You can do so much stuff. And the Family Mart just started to launch among that sort of generic, hey, you need some socks in an emergency, here are some socks. They actually got some branded Family Mart colors socks, and everyone on Twitter, on foreign Twitter, has been raving about how great these things are. And I personally, of course, I run, and I play basketball with the lad and so on, so I've got socks that look like this. And just hearing that these are the the Family Mart colors, and everyone just saying that they're very comfortable, and with it getting cool all of a sudden in Tokyo, seasons abruptly changing, it's time to think about maybe getting some warm socks. So I kind of gave into peer pressure, and I bought a pair. I just wore them today actually, and they're awesome. They're really, really comfortable. They look good. I've got a bunch of beat up old sort of tennis socks that probably need to be thrown out anyway. But yes, I must admit, I felt a lot of peer pressure about this purchase. I saw so many people sort of raving them, and it's become like a quasi sort of a meme. Everybody's buying them and taking photos, and I did, and I must say, while I assert that I am a free-thinking individual, I just happen to need to go to the convenience store. The nearest convenience store is a Family Mart. The socks were there. I needed socks. They are good. I got them. They are wonderful. So check them out if you're into tennis socks. That's like the latest hot thing from Japan, and it's hard to explain to people outside the country just how a convenience store can, be so awesome. But it's not just Family Mart. It's like all of them are good. 7-Eleven I always thought of as the best, but honestly, like I always had Family Mart close to me recently, and I got kind of used to it. And then when they built a 7-Eleven nearby recently, and so now I've got this choice. I must admit, I've gotten lately, I think Family Mart's upped its game. I think it's right up there with 7-Eleven, and Lawson is awesome as well. So yeah, if you're here, I mean, this is the item to get anyway at the moment. So that's what I've enjoyed. Back into the comments. Great to see it. Well, more people rocking in. It's awesome to see. Quentin Rankett asks, where are those socks made? Good question. Let me see. I think I've actually Still got them nearby. They should actually be in the hamper, and they're not. So give me a sec. They don't actually say on the socks, do they? They just say, yeah, do you want to see? They're actually pretty clean. It just says convenience wear. I only wore these for like 30 minutes, but it was to play basketball with my son. Doesn't say where they're made, although I would tell you there is almost no way on earth that these are not made in China. I threw the package away. So you know what? Possibly if I zoom in on the photo, I might be able to figure it out. In fact, you know what? I can probably, now you've got me curious. Squirrel. Now I really want to check where these are made. Okay, so if I zoom in, size, green comfort, Toriatsukai. I mean, look, made in China. If you look at the top bit of the screen up here, zoom enhance. Can I zoom enhance? I think I can. Boom. There we go. China. These are China socks. But I mean, everything's made in China. So, you know, that's fine. There you go. Question answered. Mystery solved. Quentin Ranked. Who else we got in here? Sainted Sir, good to see you. Socks giveaway. Well, at least I'll wash them first. Not a bad idea, actually. Seriously, I mean, they're pretty cool. It'd be pretty. If you're like I feel for weebs overseas, I think at the moment, being the first like outside of Japan to get your hands on some Family Mart socks would be pretty high status. They'd be pretty good giveaways, wouldn't they? Yeah, I'm just there's so many comments right now. I'm just trying to make sure I catch who the new commenters are. We've got the Armed Forces of Organized Crime. Welcome back. Japan must exterminate squat type toilets for real. I'll tell you what, if you are an armed force of organized crime and you are going to wage a Yakuza jihad against squat toilets, I am with you, because I cannot squat. And I've been in places where I've had to use them. I've actually got a YouTube video about my first real experience about needing to use one of those sort of toilets, and it was pretty explosive. So yeah, I'm actually with the Armed Forces of Organized Crime on the topic of squat toilets. Thank you. Guys, English World, wait a minute, they have matching headbands? Seriously, if they got tempted, because I run, and it's like keeping the sweat off my eyes is a problem. I tell you what, I actually do wear like armbands, like 1980s sort of tennis things. You can actually get ones online which you can put like your house keys and stuff into, which I find useful for running, not having to stick it like in my shoes or anything like that. So I tell you what, if Family Mart like wanted to get some matching sweat like armbands, I'd be into that. Yeah, the headband as well. Lawson is awesome. IROC 299. Big fan of the chicken that they have. The spicy red chicken that they have is pretty good. Hokenjo, thank you, Michael Morris. Dan H, Hiro Simon, it's okay, I know what you mean. No worries at all about being late. Have I heard about Nomura telling employees to give up smoking even if they work from home, and the strained relations with Japanese tobacco? I saw the news story that they're telling people not to smoke during work hours, even at home. Strikes me as a little bit intrusive. I mean, I can understand companies like giving their employees incentives not to smoke, like for health insurance discounts and stuff like that. I didn't hear about the strained relationship with Japanese tobacco, but I mean, the fact that Japan Tobacco was like 51% owned by the Japanese government, and because of that, the Ministry of Finance blocked the health ministry from passing like anti-smoking legislation for so many years is so crazy. Nomura, just have at it. But that said, saying to people that they can't smoke in their own houses when they're working strikes me as sort of overstepping the mark. I mean, certainly I wouldn't want to be having someone smoking even on a webcam, frankly. I mean, it's kind of, to me, I grew up when my dad smoked, and people like on TV, it was sort of normal. But now that it's even banned from TV, it's so weird to see people like smoking on TV in old movies. And I must admit, if I was on a webcam chat with someone at work and they were smoking, I'd find that a bit disconcerting. And I can imagine maybe that's what was happening at Nomura. I could imagine that. And I would probably tell them to knock it off. But I wouldn't tell them that they can't go out on their own veranda at home, go out on their own balcony and smoke on a break. That's like, saying that they can't do that is kind of crazy to me. But yeah. Hikusaman Arak 299 asked, do I wash items of clothing before I wear them? Yes and no. These ones I didn't, honestly. I mean, I figured I'd just break them in and wash them after, but sometimes I do. Giving up. Kerberos Tenchi said something there which I missed. Giving up smoking ain't a bad idea. Indeed not. Eric Bailey, good to see Eric Bailey here. Comment which for some reason is censored. Family Mart is so much better than 7-Eleven. Personally like that they have a urinal and 7-Eleven only has a toilet. Okay, I haven't really compared that, but yeah, that's a good. I can see why it was censored, but it's a fair observation. I haven't really. I mean, I don't rely on convenience stores for that, but certainly I have been known on occasion to use a convenience store for that purpose. Enhance Atomic Tom, indeed, that's zoom and enhance. You can actually do it. It's see, you get a free bonus episode of CSI. I'm going to go over an hour under. I'm not going to make it. I've got like 4 topics tonight, and I'm going to go over time. But it's good. I prefer doing it through the engagement. The Armed Forces of Organized Crime. Yep. Not that much. Family Mart socks have already been on eBay for €36. Well, there we go. I'll tell you what, and that would actually make them quite a valuable. I mean, given that they cost like 200 yen, that'd be a pretty awesome like giveaway. That's actually almost tempting, isn't it? I should do some. I mean, the thing is, I don't even know what I mean, honestly, I just send them to all of you, frankly. Except I guess that might creep people out, because then I need to get your personal information to send it to you. If there was some way that I could like just make it available, seriously, I would do that. I don't know. I should do some sort of a competition for them or something. They are pretty sweet. Seriously. I mean, look, they're basically just tennis socks, but they're very comfy tennis socks, and yeah, they're kind of a thing. So there you go. Not that much this. That's it's fascinating. Oh god, the comments today are too good, and I am distracted. Family Mart socks, headband, wristbands, stubbies. Yeah, I know you. I guess yes. The audience here doesn't know what stubbies are, and New Balance sneakers. I'm straight out of the 70s. Hey, it's a classic time. Disco, man. Call me Disco Hiko. So yeah. Anyway, I am desperately now going to move on to the next topic. I want to talk about this movie, One Cut of the Dead. And here's the thing. Like, all I can really say about this movie is watch it and don't read anything about it. Don't even read the reviews. Don't even read what it's about. I'll tell you, I mean, look, you go in and you'll see right away it's a zombie movie. And I don't like zombie movies. I'm not a zombie movie fan. And, and I guess the one tip that I'm going to give you is that it's a Japanese, and you know what, I actually went into this. There are so many great Japanese movies that I've watched, and when I got to Japan, I thought I'm going to just watch as many Japanese movies as possible. And then I discovered that in Japan, Japanese movies are often bad. Like, there are so many movies just made to like get a geinoujin, get a talento into a movie. They're made by Dentsu. They're like extended TV commercials, and the acting is terrible. And it's like, how, these are movies that would never get made if it weren't for the fact that they're sort of in a captive audience and there's like a big marketing company budget behind it. But they're so bad, so many movies, and I've been so let down so many times by Japanese movies. I've kind of gone off even trying to watch them anymore, and it's pretty rare. I don't really watch Japanese movies, but I saw people saying good things about this, so I went to watch it, and zombie movie, and okay, it looked kind of weird in the beginning. And then it's like the acting was terrible, and it was everything. I was like, oh my god, this is like, even as bad Japanese movies go, this movie is really bad. And seriously, like about 25 minutes in, I was ready to like give up. I was actually ready to stop watching it, and just think, what the hell is wrong with the people who are recommending this movie? And my suggestion is, if you could hold on for the first 30 minutes, it's worth it. Everything after that, you have to watch it, and you have to watch it really seriously. The more you take in of the first 30 minutes, which is painful because it's bad, but the more that you take in, the bigger, the more it makes sense, and the more it becomes very enjoyable later on. It's again, my cryptic review, I gave it 8 out of 10, and I'm actually thinking that might have been a low rating on Rotten Tomatoes. This is 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's gotten a lot of reviews. but don't read them because they give away what makes it so awesome, and you'll get more enjoyment out of it not knowing. You should watch it blind like I did. But yeah, what's cool about it is it bends a lot of genres. It's original, and it's actually smart, and it's actually like, yeah, I watched it like 3 days ago, and I'm still kind of buzzing. I'm still thinking about it, So, and you'll be like 20 minutes into the movie, like I was, and thinking Hiko's lost his mind. And all I can say is just hold on, and you'll thank me later. So, yeah, I don't know if other people. I think guys, English World. I saw that you tweeted me that you had. There's a point about 30 minutes, and we're like, this is going to go on for another hour. Like how? What? I swear I checked the timeline like 2 or 3 times around that mark, and I was like, this is so confusing. But look, it's wonderful. For people who have seen it, confirm that I'm right. It's a wonderful movie. It's on Netflix. Yeah, you should watch it. It's Kamera o Tomeruna if you're in Japan. One cut above the dead, or One Cut of the Dead if you're looking it up in English. And it's a great movie. So I do recommend that. One Johnson, agree on JP films, but also watched this one and did love it. Me too. This was one of the good ones. It's one of them. It actually has restored my faith a little bit. I mean, in some ways, when you think of the really classic, great Japanese movies, the best ones, the sumo do, sumo don't, the ping pong, they follow a sort of a similar kind of a pattern, a kind of, struggling people, and sort of that. They go, so many movies follow, but they do very well the heartwarming sort of thing. And, in a weird way, this kind of follows that sort of tradition. Like, to me, it works as well as the best Japanese movies I've seen, at least for modern movies. So, yes, indeed. That's my recommendation. Shubis is already downloading it, like I say. You will think I've lost my mind recommending this movie. But don't stop watching. Literally, like, kamera tomeruna, like, miru no tomeruna. Don't stop watching it. That's my recommendation. DJ Sunny Side Up, great to see you. And just coming in, finished your music videos for the week, man. You are producing so much stuff. Hey, EDR, check out Amazon Video. I think I saw it available, although I don't know if it's available for streaming there. See if it's available somewhere. Anyway, it is worth it. Anyway, by the way, the other context I want to add to this. So I think I mentioned this the other week. I took a challenge at work where we're doing like sort of people get into like social groups and agree on like goals. Like I joined 2. One was a jogging goal, which prompted me to run 17 kilometers yesterday. Trying to run 600 with 4 people, trying to run 625 kilometers in 9 weeks. So basically, I'm trying to run like 18k, which is like 3 6k runs a week, which is what I normally do. That was one, and the other one was I agreed with a couple of other people that we're just going to like watch 20 Netflix movies over 9 weeks, and we're going to review them. I picked the movies. I kind of deliberately picked bad movies. For example, last night I watched The Intern with Robert De Niro. That is a bad movie. That is a horrible, like, do not watch. Like, not even, there are bad movies that I would watch again for the sake of watching it as a bad movie, to sort of mock it. But The Intern with Robert De Niro is not rewatchable. It's not fun bad. It's bad. It's like I hate myself for watching this. I can't believe that they stretched this out for 2 hours. They took Robert De Niro and they basically sort of crossed the dad from Meet the Fockers. What was the original one for that? But basically that movie where he plays the grumpy dad, and they just turned him into a mannequin sort of butler version of that character. It's just such a bad movie. So I picked so many bad movies, and out of like 10 movies that I've watched in that challenge, this movie, One Cut of the Dead, is the first good one. And maybe that's another reason I enjoyed it so much, because I've watched so many bad movies in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, highly recommended. 12 minutes left, Mr. Cordy Chep. Oh God, thank you for that. Lena's 360, excellent to see you. Studying IT bachelors. What should I focus on to get chances in Japan? Good question. Good squirrel. I'm going to chase it. 12 minutes left. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to answer. Wow, I'm never going to get a show finished by 11:30 p.m. Japan time. And it's okay, because that's a good question. If you're getting an IT bachelor's, get that IT bachelor's. Of course, get Japanese language skills. Try to get an NLPT 3 if you're outside of Japan before you come here, and go for NLPT 1 when you're in the country. But this is one thing. So many people are so keen to get to Japan that they come here without having finished a degree, or not having a particular professional qualification or whatever, and they come here and they discover it's easy to get a job teaching English, and you can live pretty comfortably. But after 2 or 3 years, they realize that they haven't really done anything in Japan that's going to progress their lives when they go back. And then they start to panic, and they think, well, can I get jobs outside of English teaching, or do I just need to, do I need to get back to the quote real world and go back and finish education and getting a real job outside? And people get stuck like that. This is one thing where people, when you're too anxious to get to Japan too soon before you get a separate professional skill, it can be really awkward later on. So my advice to everybody has always been, learn Japanese and whatever, and make trips to Japan, do scoping trips, figure out the sort of jobs and opportunities here and what you need for them, but get your basic education and stuff all sorted out before you come over. So if you're doing IT bachelor's, go get those cloud certifications, security certifications, get those, and Japanese, and you can come to Japan. And the job, if that's the area that you're focusing on, there are endless jobs, but you've got to speak Japanese and you've got to be certified, and it'll be much harder to get those after you come here. It sounds like you're doing the right sort of direction, and I'm always happy to talk with people with my opinions on this, but don't rush to Japan before you finish that. Get those certifications first and get good enough Japanese, study Japanese, and get it good enough that you can do things when you're here. I mean, again, you've got a fantastic safety net coming to Japan, that if you fall on hard times, English teaching is there and you can make a good living from it. But nothing better than being able to set up, without having to rely on that, and having something which, if you ever give up on Japan, you can go back to wherever it is that you're from and point out that on your resume, you've actually done something that's valued in the country that you're going back to. Which, by the way, there are plenty of people who go back overseas and become ESL teachers overseas and build up whole schools, start up translation. There's plenty of perfectly good ways around language education that you can become a dedicated professional. But for a lot of people, who do that thoughtlessly, or who fall into that, they get trapped by it. So that's my main advice around that. Yes. Anyway, we love overtime, says Shivers. Bad movies. You sound like it would. No, I am not enjoying most of the movies that I've watched. The only thing was that The Intern was so bad, it did make me look nostalgically at. I was thinking, which of these, if I had to rewatch, what is it, The Last Mercenary with Jean-Claude Van Damme, which was really bad, or The Fifth Wave, which was like almost make you angry bad, and The Intern. I would actually, like, for a party, for watching a bad movie on purpose, I would take The Mercenary above both of those easily. It was actually, they had fun moments, frankly. And I would take The Fifth Wave, which is like a freaking Twilight, just horrible, sloshy. Even that you could watch that movie in it's a so bad it's so good kind of a way. But The Intern, no, that's just straight up punishment. Anyway. You know what? I came to Japan without experience, but you certainly at least want to get certification. You want to get all those things that, so it's in order so that you can get those jobs in Japan. Having experience is even better. Yeah, forbearance is good, but keep the connection to Japan when travel resumes. Come back in. But Zinak's got some good advice there. Eric Bailey, it's not a complete dead end. There are some people who actually go a long way with it. But it's a trap when you do it when it's not the thing you're planning to do as seriously as a career, when you're not focused on that, because it's too easy to do that. It's easy to fall into and get trapped in. But if it's something that you want to consciously move into and do as a career, I mean, no better place to do than just come here right away. But even then, you still probably want to get a linguistics degree and an education degree and really build that up if you really want to do that seriously. Anyway, moving on. Another news story that was kind of disturbing. There was a Izuka. There was a ex-bureaucrat, like 90 years old, called Izuka, who was driving his car around Ikebukuro. This guy, on his way, I believe, to a French lesson at the time. He was driving a Toyota, and one of these many cases that you get with elderly drivers where the car, it appeared that, the conclusion of the trial is that there was nothing wrong with the car, no engineering problems or anything at all. It's certainly clear that, as seems to happen a lot with elderly drivers, the feet are just not as sensitive, and he believed he was pressing on the brake when in fact he was pressing on the accelerator, and then confused as to why the car was flying ahead and continued pressing, believing he was pressing on the brake. And as the car went through one of the busiest neighborhoods in Tokyo, with foot to the floor, and as he went onto the sidewalk, he ran over he injured a number of people, but he ran over and killed a mother and her baby. And for that, he was arrested and charged with vehicular manslaughter. He asserted that it was not his fault. He said that the car drove on its own spontaneously. He blames Toyota. He refuses to admit any responsibility for it. He says he feels bad for the husband who lost the wife and daughter, but he doesn't feel like he owes him an apology because he still doesn't accept that it's his fault. Given the lack of remorse or lack of admission, the court decision came down that he got the maximum case sentence that you're allowed for vehicular manslaughter in Japan, which is only 5 years, which is the idea as well, that it wasn't done on purpose, but it was negligent. It was basically negligent driving that that resulted in death. A lot of people pointing out, well, and it's not going to be time served. By the way, he wasn't arrested for a long time, and this has been going on for a number of years, and there was a lot of talk that because he used to be an elite government bureaucrat, he was getting favorable treatment, he wasn't being detained. They even entertained his idea that there was something wrong with the car for a long time. But he's going to have to serve the time in jail. The only thing is, some people have suggested he'll probably spend the rest of it. He's 90 years old, so he's probably going to spend the rest of his life appealing and dragging it through the courts to stay out of jail. But the sentence at the moment was a custodial sentence. So good news in that regard. Kind of infuriating that the sort of sense of entitlement that and complete. The Japanese justice system really emphasizes a lot that, partly for efficiency, they don't want to investigate cases. They rely on confessions, and when people don't give them, it's interpreted as lack of remorse, and lack of remorse will be generally interpreted as extra heavy penalties, which puts you in a tough spot if you're actually innocent. But in this case, it's pretty hard to see from the evidence that's out in the media anyway how he could have not be responsible for this. So a lot of discussion, people feeling like 5 years isn't enough. A lot of people feel very bad for the family involved in this, but you got a custodial sentence, so that's a good thing. Michael Atlas, you're not too late for the Suga commentary. You know me, I'm always basically late. In fact, we just got there. Boom. So let's start there now. Izuka is indeed a disgrace. Right, Japan going Suga-Free. So what happened this week? It's been, oh God, there's 5 minutes. Okay, I'm totally going to go over time, but here we go. This is the last story, but there's so many aspects of this. Okay, buckle up. Let's do this. I can't even remember what day it was, but earlier this week, what's been happening is there's 2 elections that are coming up. There's the election that really matters, and there's the election which doesn't really matter. Perhaps counterintuitively, the election that really matters is the LDP leadership election, which is due in September. The election that doesn't matter so much is the national election in November. The LDP leadership election, the only people that can vote are LDP members from local chapters who get half the votes, and members of parliament from the LDP who get the other half of the votes. So basically, no one, most people have no say in this, but it decides who gets to rule Japan, who gets to be the prime minister and decide the cabinet. So effectively is the vote that determines the government of Japan. But yet, almost nobody gets to vote in it. But it gets all the media coverage. They have leadership debates. They take opinion polls. But the opinion polls don't matter because no one can vote for it. The November election, you'd think, would be the more important one that decides which party rules Japan. But right now, the opposition is polling single digits. The LDP, in spite of having 70% of people being against, disapproving of the current cabinet, still has 20% support, which is much lower than its normal 30 to 40%, but it still is 4 times the amount of the Constitutional Democratic Party. Which instead of capitalizing on saying that we shouldn't have had the Olympics or that the COVID's being mishandled, the only voices I remember in the last few months were the members of the Constitutional Democrats who said, yeah, we should legalize statutory rape. And various other sort of things that it's just like, I mean, are you trying to lose on purpose? So, basically the opposition are just such a bunch of muppets who betrayed the trust of people who voted in them and were so incompetent at ruling when they last were in government 8 years ago. That still hasn't worn off for a lot of people. So in a way, as much as it's easy to see that the LDP should lose some seats and do badly, like they've been losing in every local election that's been going on the last 2 years, it still is hard to see them losing power. And based on that, what really matters in that case is what the next election is. Suga looked like he actually said in the early days that he was hoping that no one else would run and he would be able to just focus on continuing to deal with the pandemic, and that people would not basically make it a contested leadership election. However, when it became clear that people were unhappy with the way that things were being run, with the fact that the cabinet positions weren't being rotated around party members, how the youth wing of the party felt like the LDP was being sort of dominated by the old guard, particularly the party president, the internal party chief administrator, Nikai, who was a sort of backer of Suga and so on. And other sort of politicians started throwing their hat in the ring and indicating that they might give him a race. And people started, and it appeared that, and this was at the same time as in popularity polls, the LDP was going down to the lowest levels it's been since Aso and Mori were prime minister, like as bad as it was just before the last time the LDP lost an election. And a lot of people worried that they're going to lose their seat if Suga stays as prime minister and he's this unpopular. So with that background, Suga decided to throw a Hail Mary to try to win back popularity within the party by suddenly firing the LDP party president at the start of the week, which was a bit of a shock move because this was the party president who put him in the prime minister seat. The rumors are that I've seen on Twitter and some other sort of channels talking about this is that the party president decided to get revenge by rounding up basically all of the backers that he rounded up to get Suga into power and basically corner him and say to him that, okay, you have to resign. And he did that. In the middle of the week, he suddenly came out and said, I'm going to focus on, I don't have the energy for the internal party election, so I'm not going to stand, effectively resigning. And Nikai went on the cameras right after that saying, oh, what a surprise. But of course, he was definitely the one it was definitely like a revenge stabbing the other guy back. So they sort of took each other out. And what's been happening since then is, of course, people have been now that we're definitely going to have a new prime minister after the internal LDP election. The question is, who is it going to be? And there are at the moment, really, I think 4 declared candidates and probably about 5 are going to be there in the end. In fact, this article probably has photos of them. In terms of like opinion polls, and personally, I mean, I don't like any of them, but if I was going to choose, probably Taro Kono, the vaccine minister, former foreign minister. He's also the minister in charge of regulatory reform, or administrative reform. He kind of got thrown all the hard needs action jobs, and they're a den of jackals, but as in terms of politicians who actually do get things done and communicate quite well, and there's, to me, an interesting character. Taro Kono's, interesting actually, and he's got more to offer, I think, than the other candidates. The first candidate to throw his hat in the ring that was kind of interesting was a former foreign minister called Kishida, who's just kind of a nice guy, but kind of doesn't really ever do anything, and kind of hope that he might just be able to smile and say a few slogans and get in. But now the real long-term people who have always been considered the real contenders for the LDP party membership, one is Shigeru Ishiba, the other is Taro Kono. And it looks like they're both going to be running for this. In addition to that, there are also 2 women running for this. There's a party policy director, Shimomura, who's got some people backing him. There's no way he's going to be in the race. The 2 other interesting candidates are that there are 2 women who are going to run for this, Sanae Takeichi and Seiko Noda. Sanae Takaichi, I mean, on the one hand, it'd be great for Japan to get its first woman prime minister out of this, especially given that the LDP has less than 10% women members. So it would almost be misleading that they would have a woman prime minister. Also interesting that Abe himself 8 years ago sort of looked at the very small pool of women MPs that there are in the LDP when he became prime minister, and he saw Sanae Takaichi and thought, well, she is a drooling right-wing maniac who takes photos with neo-Nazis. you know, and in terms of like, you know, rampant nationalism and militarism, and wants to, you know, just she's mellowed out a lot, but she is still at the extreme far right nationalist end of the LDP. So she was kind of like too crazy. She's one of the candidates right now, by the way. There was another Seiko Noda, who also, apart from being extremely far right, also is married to apparently a former gangster, is the word. There's at least the sports newspapers and so on have been sort of putting the speculation around that she's actually married to a former gangster. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what's going around in the rumors about her, among other things. So you've got that going against her. So the one that Abe sort of thought would be the right one to back was the daughter of the former Prime Minister Keizo Obuchi. There was a Yuko Obuchi, who was quite well educated, quite presentable, good at communicating. They put her in charge of a significant ministry, even though I think she was only in her early 30s at the time. And she was going great until the problem is that her dad's office, you know, she was basically inheriting the role, and her dad's office was looking after her party fundraising. And when there was some election bribery and some underhanded accounting rumors going around, which was unquestionably the work of the people who had supported her dad and used the same tactics for years. And the police came in to go and confiscate all of her computers to catch her basically criminally, or at least her office involved in criminal electoral fundraising and bribing and so on. Apparently she and her office took apart their computers and used power drills to drill holes in the hard disks so that the information on them could not be read. So she became called the power drill, and she's never been seen since. Actually, she stood down. And she was to me, I thought the best hope for an ex-woman prime minister being groomed within the LDP. However, now Sanai Takaichi is back, and she says that she's not a Nazi anymore, which is a positive. And she's running. And she seems a lot less crazy than she used to be, but I can't imagine her winning. And Sanai Seiko Noda, I can't imagine. Ishiba is an interesting character. He made the mistake that when Japan was going through the rotational, the revolving door prime ministers, one every few months, he had a brilliant strategy. He went around during the party election that got Abe to be prime minister. He was the main rival for Abe within the LDP. And he said, you know what, I'm going to be okay with Abe winning this one, so long as it's understood by everybody that when he goes out, probably in a few months, it'll be my turn next. So he decided to be the guy who would be next in line for it to be his turn to be prime minister after Abe. And there was sort of a weird sort of consensus around that. But then Abe was prime minister for 8 years. Until last year, and through all that time, basically people stopped paying attention to him, and he was basically doing nothing, just waiting the entire time. So he's coming back now, but his stock is somewhat fallen. In terms of who's backing who, it is interesting. Abe is backing Sanai Takaichi, which I guess shows that maybe Abe was a drooling right winger. Taro Aso and Suga are both backing Taro Kono. Kono is actually a member of Aso's faction, but interesting that the outgoing prime minister is backing him. I believe that Nikai is backing Kishida, who is sort of like he started out the front runner at the start of the race. If I was going to put money on this, well, even out of preference, I wasn't sure that Kono actually had the internal support to get the vote. But given that right now, opinion polls are showing that Kono is the favored person to win, I would say that right now it looks a lot like it's going to be Kono, but we'll have to see. It'll be in a few weeks, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. What is interesting about Kono, though, and what will make this election interesting, is that that was interesting too. What's kind of interesting is that Kono's job has been administrative reform, which means he's been the guy going around getting rid of all the bureaucrats' faxes and hankos, and kind of basically interfering in the world of the Japanese bureaucrats who, basically run Japan. And they consider that it's not politicians' jobs to tell them how to do their job running Japan or making policy or passing laws. That's not what lawmakers do in Japan. Lawmakers in Japan just sort of wave a flag and smile for the cameras and take turns sitting on top of, basically their job is to lobby for funding for the ministries, and the ministries just decide what they're going to do regardless of who's in charge. And whenever a minister or a politician starts wanting to actually be in charge, it's like yes, minister, except there's not even any hint of humor. It's actually how it is. The Sir Humphreys of Japanese government like run the country. When the Democrats won a few years ago, all the Sir Humphreys just stopped cooperation. And whenever there is this thing that whenever someone is sort of acting hostile towards the bureaucracy, acting like they want to like replace the Sir Humphreys or whatever, in very yes minister fashion, some very convenient sort of scandals start going out into the media, and there starts to be this sort of media stories constantly saying, "Oh, this person's a terrible person," and this has started around Kono, saying that he bullies bureaucrats and that he's he's egotistical and so on, which he probably is, but yeah, the fact is the media cooperate with the bureaucrats against the politicians because they know that they get their stories from the bureaucrats because they're going to be there when the politicians are gone. So you've got this kind of like this cooperation the government's run basically between the cooperation of the LDP, the media, the business groups, and the bureaucrats all sort of getting together. And the bureaucrats, when they want someone out, they'll sort of start a campaign. They'll start feeding out scandals and whatever. I'm guessing they don't have a lot on Kono if they're just coming at him that he's an egotistical maniac, which he clearly is. But if that's all that they've got, he's done an amazing job of staying clean, because if they had any dirt on them, it would be pouring out right now. But anyway, the fact that the media is kind of going after Kono the way that it is kind of shows how scared the bureaucrats are, which to me is like the best thing about Kono. So that's where I'm sort of am on that. But it could be have our first woman prime minister. It could be Takaichi. It could be Kishida, which would just be boring as hell. But I think it's going to be Kono. But we'll have to wait and see how heated the campaign becomes and how much the media and the bureaucrats really go after him. And if he can hold up the numbers. The other thing that was interesting was when Suga resigned, the son of former Prime Minister Koizumi, Shinjiro Koizumi, went on TV and basically bawled his eyes out, talking about, people don't realize how hard he is working. And it sounds great, but he was quoting word for word some things that his dad said a few years ago. So, his elder brother is an actor. It's a bit weird to see someone, sort of crying that how misunderstood the Prime Minister is. Although, look, it was sort of nice as well. He said the Prime Minister did throw a lot of support behind, climate change initiatives and the Environment Ministry, which he was in charge of, more than other Prime Ministers have. And he points out a lot got done that wouldn't have got done with him. At the same time, though, looking back at Suga and why he resigned, I don't think he didn't resign because of the Olympics or because of mishandling of the COVID campaign. He did indirectly. He was becoming so unpopular that he was scaring the rest of the LDP, that everyone thought they were going to lose their jobs and get voted out because of how unpopular he was. But he got voted out, or he resigned, because it was basically a revenge assassination by Nikai, who he took out because, as a kind of a ploy to try to win back the younger wings of the party who were feeling excluded by him. And were concerned that he wasn't being responsive enough to the need to change the cabinet in order to win the November election. So it was actually indirect. And in fact, if you look at the numbers, I mean, Japan's objectively managed the pandemic a lot better in terms of the number of people sick and dead and so on, better than Europe. There are a lot of countries like America, Europe, Australia, in different ways. Other countries that you could say have handled it worse than Japan. Japan has not done so bad, and a lot of those leaders that have handled it really badly are still there. So I don't think you could say that, objectively it's done as bad as other places. But the thing about Suga, and the reason that he really, in the end of the day, lost everyone's trust and stopped being prime minister, was he was such a terrible communicator. It's kind of amazing. You talk about, in America, hey, anyone can be president. And you look at someone like George W. Bush or Trump, and you think, wow, anyone there can be. You just have to be like a loudmouth. You don't have to be very smart or very sort of, even a very good person, and it's possible to become. But at the same time, in Japan, you say the same thing. And clearly in Japan, very corrupt, bad people have been prime ministers. I don't think Suga was a bad person. But you talk about like the ultimate introvert. He was a great cabinet secretary. He was just very efficient at managing and administering and doing the business of politics, and all the way to being like the top of the country. It's hard to imagine that someone with the lack of communication skills of Suga could ever be a national leader in any country other than Japan. It shows how important it is to be a bureaucrat in Japan, and that's sort of what he is. But in the end of the day, when you got something like a pandemic that requires a lot of communication, constant communication. He's just not good at it to begin with. It was never going to go, even if he does the job well, it was never going to go well. And you might say, well, he might have done better if he was a better communicator, but there are politicians in Japan who are quite good communicators. The governor of Tokyo, Yuriko Koike, I think is a good example of that. And, she's been hospitalized for exhaustion, and clearly she struggled as well. So from my perspective, look, my wrap up on Suga is that he should have cancelled the Olympics, and there's a bunch of things with the pandemic. The Go-To travel campaign and the Olympics sent the wrong signals at the wrong times. His messaging was confusing and inconsistent, and I don't think he's done a great job, but I think the overall results show that it's been managed relatively competently as things go, and no matter what approach had been taken or who was in charge, I mean, what a tough job. I don't think that I could go and do that job or have done it necessarily any better, even if I'd done it differently. So you talk about how these jobs like age people or they wear people out. Could you imagine being the leader of like a country like Japan during like the last year? And he did a much better job than Abe, who was completely absent without leave for the whole grind, albeit with medical problems, but he should have resigned right away. So look, from my perspective, while I don't like Suga and I disagree with a lot of the way that, and I'm part of the people, 70% that disapprove of the cabinet right now, I think as he resigns, I can acknowledge that he had a really tough job, and I think he did, as a human being, he deserves an Otsukare-sama anyway, for the job he did. As much as I disagree with many of the things that he did, I think I have to give him credit for, surviving through a pretty tough job. That said, it's going to be really interesting what happens. I don't think Japan's going to radically change any policies with the new leader, but I do think that, I think Kono offers the best prospect of actual like original policies and thoughtful, sort of originating from like leadership as opposed to the bureaucracy. So I think that would be the most interesting outcome, but we'll wait and see. I'm going to leave it there. I am, as always, 15 minutes over. It's been a busy week. Let's take one last look at the comments and say good night. Remember, if you do enjoy the show, please like if you like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I know everyone was interested in my take on Suga, so I left that one to the end. How long do I think it'll be till Aso retires? Asks one John-san. Well, as they say, only the good die young. So I believe Aso is probably going to retire when he is 120. And he'll probably continue to be involved in politics still for another 20 years after that, because he is a bad person. I mean, I must admit, there is a thing about Aso that I have to say. I've said this before. Seeing him on TV when the LDP was in opposition, and he was so relaxed, and he was actually like, some people are going to hate me for this, and they're not going to understand this, but seriously, I think Aso would be a really fun guy to have over at the house or to have a beer with. He's actually got, he's got that bad uncle sense of humor, which is completely inappropriate for the job that he does. But, he's seen a lot of history. He's been involved in a lot of stuff, and he's capable of putting himself down and laughing at himself. He recognizes when he's screwed up, and he made jokes about it on TV. He'd actually be an okay guy, basically like a Warioji-san, but kind of fun to have a beer with. That's what Aso's like. But he's a complete liability being in government. So anyway, wow, lots of comments here. Let me just see. So Mitchell Atlas, you made it just in time. Did I say Michael Atlas before? I'm worried I said Michael Atlas now as I was skimming, but it's definitely Mitchell Atlas, and you made it just in time, obviously. Boom, 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 going down, no orange, bit of an orange there, scrolling down, no orange. DJ Sunny Side Up. So funny when I say Sanai, that's basically the name Sanai. Oh, there we go, Sanai. I must admit, I'm guilty because you say Sunny Side Up, and I know that you pronounce your name Sanai. Your name is Sanai, I should say, but I still think Sunny. But yes, Sanai. Okay, well, there you go. Good name. Better name than hers, anyway. Scrolling down. DJ Sunny Side Up. The daughter has been off school since last week. Been going to the rivers and making music. That's pretty cool. No, I'm jealous, man. You've had a good. Yeah, I'm glad you used the time well. Believe in yourself. Nice run while it lasted. No, it wasn't really a nice run while it lasted at all, but you know, it's over. And he does deserve a sort of well done. Eric Bailey, 2024, you go for it. Quentin Rankin, remember the party talks between Taiwan and Japan? Oh, I didn't even say that. Well, look, just the quick thing on the party talks, Japan and Taiwan. I don't know anything about it, but look, Japan has always been, at the unofficial level, super friendly with Taiwan. I mean, look, 1953, Japan actually sent former Japanese army military advisors to the to the Republic of China army and advised. I mean, part of the reason Taiwan exists is because people who became LDP politicians, who were former generals in the Japanese Imperial Army, secretly advised Chiang Kai-shek on the defense of Taiwan and helped them hold out. The Japan Army, you know, the disbanded Japanese Imperial Army, helped keep Taiwan, non-communist, and those ties on a personal level and on a societal level. And the people who lived in Taiwan, it's so weird how Taiwan is so different to Korea and how they look back at the time of being a part of Japan, under Japanese colonial rule or occupation, depending on your perspective. The mainlanders who came to Taiwan after the war, some of them actually, the really anti-communist ones, were glad to have the support of the Japanese, but most people over there were just like, couldn't understand how Taiwanese could like Japanese at all. And it's complicated there, the whole education thing. But don't forget, Li Tenghui was great friend of the LDP. There are people who come to Yasukuni every year, the Taiwanese who were former Japanese Imperial Army leaders who from Taiwan, who come and speak at Yasukuni every year. So the personal ties are so close. So there's almost no, the fact that Abe was advertising Taiwan pineapples when China sort of embargoed Taiwanese pineapples for a time. Nothing is new. Going back to 1953, going back to the Chinese Civil War, nothing is new with Japan and the LDP in particular having great relations with Taiwan. It's drawing more attention now just because of the increasing tension with China and America paying more attention to Taiwan again. America paying attention to Taiwan just comes and goes in ebbs and waves. With Japan, it's just constant. These talks with, it's getting, like I said, it's getting more attention now. And of course, the recent move to actually name Japan and to name Taiwan in Japan's defense white paper, which really riled China. But that undertone that was written there has always been there. So to me, it's nothing new. That's my take on it. But of course, it is going to bring things to a head. The fact that, part of the reason China wants to grab those islands in Okinawa, that it calls the Diaoyutai Islands and that Japan calls the Senkaku Islands, it's not just a feeling of historical justice and legitimacy. Those islands offer a causeway through Okinawa for its shipping, which it sees as a security thing. They also provide a means for China to be able to surround Taiwan and to block off Japan from being able to supply Taiwan in the case that China attacks Taiwan. So it's pretty likely that if China really does want to militarily attack Taiwan, they're going to start out by attacking the Senkaku Islands. And so the idea that the security of those islands of Japanese territory is connected to the defense of Taiwan is absolutely correct. And it's natural that those talks are happening right now. And frankly, I think it's good for the entire region for Japan to be friendly with Taiwan, because like I said, the last thing you want is China going crazy, militarily, expanding against Taiwan and other parts of the region, militarily, like that would destroy the economy and the security of the entire region. And don't think that China wouldn't do it for economic reasons. They'll do it for nationalist reasons. So I think it's good for everyone. It's good for Korea. It's good for Vietnam. It's good for Philippines. It's good for everyone. For Japan to just be giving enough support to Taiwan to make China not do that, and America. So that's my take on that. Quentin Rankid. Hope that did the trick. Man, I said I was sure I'd be done by 11:30. Iraq 299, very similar to May taking over from Cameron in the UK. They got Johnson. Yeah. I mean Johnson. That's a whole separate thing. But AV84K completely forgot for today. Don't worry. Mitchell, sorry. I realized when I saw your name again. I thought, oh crap! I think I just said Michael. So I apologize for that, but yes, President of the World 2024. He knows stuff and junk. You got my vote. Go for it. Harold Prim, nice to see a new username as well. One thing for Kono is that he's an excellent English speaker. He is indeed. In fact, I believe he went to school in Connecticut or someplace like that. Fancy schmancy. And boom, that's it. I am going to end it there. I think someone took exception to me saying that any idiot could be POTUS, which, no, that's not true. Of course, you have to be a little bit smart. But, like I say, different types of anybody can make it. In America, in Japan, it's like the ultimate introvert little Jimmy who sits in the back of the class and never talks to anybody. He can be prime minister in Japan. It was in America to be the loudmouth at the front. Ideally, you would like the balanced kid in the middle of the class. But, unfortunately, increasingly, that's not what we get nowadays. Squirrels. That's the end of the show. 20 minutes over. I had like 4 topics, and this took like 20 minutes over. That's what I do. You know that's what I do here. It's nearly 1 a.m. in Australia. I'm going to end it there. Like if you liked. Subscribe. Thank you all for joining. Have a good week, everybody. Stay safe. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook if you enjoy these sorts of topics and you want to interact with me offline. And have a good week. Ka kite no peace. Boom. Ending stream. End.